You know someone like this. He has brilliant ideas, grand dreams, a sparkle in his eyes of someone born for something extraordinary. He talks about incredible projects, but he never brings anything to fruition. For every failure, he always has an excuse ready. It wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right person. The world just hasn't understood him yet. Maybe he's a childhood friend, or your brother. Maybe he's your partner, or maybe he is your father. Someone who, despite their age, seems to have stopped in time. An adult who still acts like a boy, emotionally unstable, terrified of commitment, always chasing a fantasy of freedom while running from any real responsibility. And maybe, just maybe, a part of you is still waiting, hoping he will finally change. Carl Jung gave this pattern a name, Puer Aeternus, the eternal boy. This isn't just immaturity, it is the archetype of the man who refuses to grow up. He lives in a state of eternal transition, always preparing for his real life, but never actually starting it. He enchants everyone with his youthful energy, his creativity, his spontaneous charm, but behind that charm, there is a shadow, the inability to face the demands of the real world. This video is not an attack, it is a mirror. And if you are watching, it's because something inside you recognizes this pattern, perhaps in someone close to you, perhaps in yourself. Let's talk about that now. So what does this eternal boy look like? He is often charismatic, spontaneous, and full of life. But beneath this magnetic exterior lies a deep, paralyzing fear of being trapped, of being limited, of making one choice that closes the door to all other possibilities. The first, most defining trait is that he lives a provisional life. His current job, the city he lives in, even his relationships, he sees them all as temporary. He tells himself this isn't his real life. It's just a placeholder until something perfect arrives. The problem is, perfection only exists in fantasy, and that is where the eternal boy feels most at home. He would rather dream of being a great artist than face the hundreds of hours of frustrating, lonely work it takes to actually become one. This leads to his profound fear of commitment. Any boundary, any rule, any long-term responsibility feels like a cage. In relationships, this becomes a kind of Don Juan complex. He unconsciously searches for a perfect, nurturing mother in every woman he meets, wanting unconditional adoration without any of the burdens of an adult partnership. When a relationship demands real commitment and starts to feel too real, the fear of being trapped kicks in. He pulls away, leaving confusion and heartbreak behind him. He isn't trying to be cruel. He is driven by a deep compulsion to stay free. He relies on fantasy to escape. He prefers the intoxicating world of ideas to the often boring reality of daily life. He might be a know-it-all, brilliant and full of knowledge from books, but with no real, lived experience to ground it. This can also lead to more destructive escapes, like addictions to games or substances, anything that helps him avoid the weight of the adult world. And finally, under his loud calls for freedom, there is a deep dependency. He is often psychologically, if not financially, dependent on a mother figure or a partner to handle the real world for him. He secretly likes being seen as special or fragile because it absolves him of responsibility. He longs for freedom, but his refusal to be responsible keeps him trapped, like a child. This isn't just a character flaw. It's a deep psychological pattern with roots in the past. So where does it come from? To understand the eternal boy, we have to look back at the first relationship that shapes our world, the one with the mother. Jung identified the mother complex as one of the most powerful forces in a man's psyche. When this connection is unresolved, it can stop a son's development in its tracks. Often, the curse of the Puer Aeternus begins with a loving but overbearing mother. A mother who, perhaps out of her own anxiety or unmet needs, shields her son from every hardship. She solves his problems, fights his battles, and creates a world of comfort that, while safe, prevents him from ever developing his own strength. He learns to equate love with being rescued. As this boy becomes a man, that psychic cord is never cut. He is an adult, but psychologically, he is still tied to the mother. He then projects this need onto the women in his life, searching not for a partner, but for a mother replacement. He wants a woman who will adore him, manage his life, and never ever challenge him to grow up. This is why the relationships always fail. When his partner shows her own needs, when she asks him to stand on his own feet, the fantasy shatters. He feels trapped, resentful, and flees to find his freedom again. Compounding this is almost always a weak or emotionally absent father. The father is the one who, psychologically, should break the son's total identification with the mother and lead him into the world of masculine responsibility. If the father is not there or is passive and weak, the son has no model for mature manhood. He stays in the mother's orbit, his own assertiveness and capacity for action left undeveloped. This creates the perfect storm for the eternal boy to emerge, trapped between a childhood he cannot leave and an adulthood he cannot enter. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Beyond family, there are deeper forces at play. Jung called them archetypes. For the eternal boy, the two most important are the anima and the shadow. The anima is the feminine soul within a man. When it's healthy, it connects him to his creativity, his inner life, and his ability to relate to others. In the Puer Aeternus, the anima is undeveloped, stuck to the mother complex. Instead of developing his own inner qualities, like patience and emotional wisdom, he demands that women carry them for him. He cannot soothe himself, so he needs a woman to soothe him. He cannot find meaning in his own life, so he becomes obsessed with a woman he hopes will give his life meaning. He is searching for his own soul outside of himself, a task that is doomed to fail. And then there is the shadow. The shadow is everything we run from in ourselves. For the charming, free-spirited, eternal boy, what do you think is in his shadow? It is everything he fears: responsibility, discipline, routine, commitment, limitation. He fears the old man inside him, the Senex archetype, which represents order, structure, and wisdom. He sees these things as boring, as a prison that will crush his spirit. He doesn't realize that the shadow he runs from contains the very strength he needs. It holds his ability to endure, to be resilient, to build something real in the world. Jung's goal is not to kill one archetype to save another. It's about integration. A whole man has the boy's creativity and the old man's wisdom. He has the spirit of adventure and the discipline to see it through. The curse is living only half a life. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you recognizes the urgency of what is being said. Maybe you see this in someone you love. Maybe you've seen yourself in these words. There is no shame in that. The time for truth has come. So how does the eternal boy break the curse? The path is what Jung called individuation, the journey of becoming a whole, complete individual. The first step is brutal honesty. The puer must see the pattern. He must recognize that his provisional life is an escape from the fear of failure and the pain of real commitment. This is not about shame. It is about understanding the psychological curse he carries so he can finally take responsibility for it. The second step is what the Jungian analyst Marie-Louise von Franz called the cure work. This doesn't just mean a job. It means committing to a task in the real world and sticking to it, especially when it gets hard and boring. It is through the friction of real, difficult work that he grounds his fantasies in reality and discovers his true strength. The third step is psychic separation from the mother. He must learn to mother himself. When he feels lost, he must learn to guide himself instead of looking for a woman to save him. This is an incredibly difficult task. It means willingly facing the loneliness and anxiety that the mother figure always protected him from. Fourth, he must integrate his shadow. The eternal boy has to turn around and face the boring, disciplined old man he has been running from. He must consciously build routine and structure into his life. He must find value not just in the thrilling start, but in the steady discipline it takes to finish. The task is to embrace the very limitations he fears most. And finally, he must create his own initiation. In a world without rites of passage, he has to consciously seek challenges that force him to grow. Start a business with his own money. Make a real, long-term commitment to a person or a cause. He must risk real failure, risk a broken heart. It is only by facing the real world that the boy's potential can become the man's reality. The decision to grow is finally in your hands. The curse of the Puer Aeternus is the tragedy of an unlived life. He is Peter Pan, watching the warmth of a real life from the outside, a joy he can't have because he refuses to pay the price of entry. Growing up. But breaking the curse is possible. It takes courage to face your own shadow, to take on the heavy weight of responsibility, and to mourn the fantasy of infinite potential for the sake of a single, real life. The goal is not to kill the Peter Pan inside. The goal is to integrate him, to give the boy's creative spirit a solid foundation to build upon. The goal isn't to kill the boy who could fly, but to transform him into the man who can build. The adventure of your real life isn't waiting for you to find it. It's waiting for you to choose it.